You think you have time. You think 60 is still young. You hear people say things like, 60 is the new 40, or that the hardest years are behind you now. And you believe it because it feels comforting. Your body still works reasonably well. Your mind is still sharp enough to hold a conversation, remember names, follow the news, make plans. Life finally feels manageable, like the chaos has settled and you can breathe again. I am 92 years old. I have been alive long enough to watch the world change completely, long enough to bury my wife, my parents, my brother, and almost every close friend I ever had. I spent 38 years as a high school history teacher in a small town in Ohio. I retired at 70. I thought I had prepared myself. I had savings. I had routines. I had children who called me every week and grandchildren who ran into my arms when I visited. I was not prepared for what actually came. I was not prepared for how quickly the years would collapse into each other. I was not prepared for how suddenly strength disappears, how silence replaces busy rooms, how a normal Tuesday can become the day everything ends. I was not prepared for how lonely it feels to be the last one still alive from your own past. This is not a video from someone who figured life out. This is a message from someone who ran out of time to fix his mistakes. And if you are in your 60s right now, if you still feel like there is no real urgency yet, consider this your warning. Your 60s are not the beginning of your golden years. They are the last real chance you have to prepare for everything that comes next. And everything that comes next is harder than you think. When I was 62, I could walk 3 miles without thinking about it. I carried heavy grocery bags up the stairs. I spent weekends fixing things around the house, climbing ladders, kneeling on the floor, standing back up without using my hands. None of it felt impressive. It just felt normal, so I never thought much about it. By the time I was 75, walking a mile felt like an achievement. I needed to rest halfway up the stairs. My legs felt heavier, my balance less reliable, but I kept telling myself it was just part of getting older and nothing to worry about. At 84, I had a mild stroke. I did not lose my speech, but I lost my balance. I lost the natural confidence in my own body. Standing up from a chair became something I had to think about. Walking outside alone became something my children worried about. The independence I had taken for granted disappeared quietly, without any dramatic moment. Here is what nobody really tells you. The strength you lose after 60 is almost impossible to get back. The muscle disappears and does not return easily. Your balance weakens and never fully recovers. Your bones become fragile in ways you cannot feel until one small fall changes everything. If you are in your 60s and you can still walk long distances, walk them. If you can still carry things, carry them. If you can still get up from the floor without help, practice doing it. Move your body every single day, not to look younger, not to impress anyone, but because one day you will want to move, and you will not be able to. Build the strength now. You are going to need it later more than you can imagine. I had a group of friends I had known since my 40s. We called ourselves the Friday Men because we met for coffee every Friday morning for almost 30 years. There were 4 of us: George, Alan, Robert, and me. We talked about work, our marriages, our children, the news, and later our aches and pains. I believed those friendships would last until the end. I thought we would all grow old together, complain about the same things, and slowly fade out around the same time. I was wrong. George died first, a heart attack at 74. Alan followed 6 years later, cancer. Robert had a stroke during the pandemic and never really recovered. Now I am the only one left. When I sit in that coffee shop, I still order the same drink, but I no longer have anyone who remembers the stories we used to tell, the jokes we repeated, the people we used to be. My children are kind. My grandchildren love me. But none of them knew me at 45. None of them remember my parents, my first house, my early struggles. There is a loneliness that comes from being the only person still alive who remembers your own life. Make more friends in your 60s. Younger friends, older friends, new friends from new places. Do not assume the ones you have now will still be here later. Cast a wide net, because you have no idea who will still be alive in 20 years. Being alone is one thing. Outliving everyone who knows your story is something much harder. When my mother was 89, she had a stroke that left her unable to speak. She was still alive, still aware, but she could not tell us what she wanted. We did not know if she wanted to stay on machines, if she wanted aggressive treatment, or if she wanted comfort and peace. We did not know where her important papers were, what accounts she had, or how she wanted her things divided. So we guessed. My brother and I argued constantly. We made decisions in the dark, hoping we were doing the right thing. Every choice felt heavy, and every mistake felt permanent. Those 3 years were not only painful because my mother was suffering, but because we were suffering too, trying to clean up a mess that could have been avoided. I promised myself I would never do that to my children. And still, I almost did, because talking about death feels uncomfortable. It feels like inviting something bad into your life. Nobody wants to sit down with their kids and say, "This is what I want when I am dying. This is where the money is. This is who gets what." But death does not wait for comfort. I finally had that conversation with my children, Emily and Jonathan, when I was 74. I should have done it at 64. The moment I realized other people's lives depended on my choices, I should have spoken. Not talking about death does not protect your family. It punishes them later. For most of my adult life, I was known as Mr. Hayes, the history teacher. That was who I was. For 38 years, I woke up with a purpose, a schedule, and a room full of students who needed me to show up and be present. My job gave structure to my days and meaning to my identity. When I retired at 70, I thought I would finally feel free. No more early mornings, no more grading papers, no more deadlines. I imagined traveling, reading, relaxing, and enjoying all the time I never had before. What actually happened was silence. I woke up one morning and realized I had nowhere to go and nothing important to do. The days felt long and empty. Without my job, I did not know who I was anymore. I felt invisible, replaceable, unnecessary. It took me almost 2 years to admit that I was not enjoying retirement at all. I was slowly fading. What saved me was building a new life on purpose. I started volunteering at a local school. I began working in my garden every morning. I developed small routines that gave my days shape again, like walking to the same cafe for coffee and reading the paper at the same table. If your job is your entire identity, retirement will not feel like freedom. It will feel like disappearance. Start building a life outside of work now, while you still can. Because one day your job will be gone, and you will still be here, needing something to live for. My wife Margaret and I were married for 61 years. That number sounds impressive, and it is, but when I look back at it honestly, the part that truly mattered went by much faster than I ever expected. The first 20 years were about building a life. We were busy raising children, paying bills, fixing the house, worrying about money, and arguing about small things that felt important at the time. We loved each other, but we were tired, distracted, and always in a hurry. The next 15 years were harder than I like to admit. We went through a period where we almost divorced. We were both stubborn. We both wanted to be right. It took a lot of painful conversations and quiet compromises to find our way back to each other. It was not until our 50s that we finally had a truly good marriage. We traveled. We laughed more. We enjoyed our grandchildren. We felt like partners instead of survivors. But by then, we had limited time left. Of the 30 years we had after that, only about 10 were truly healthy and active. Then Margaret started slowing down. Then my body followed. Doctor visits replaced vacations. Medications replaced plans. Our world slowly became smaller. I would give anything to have those years back, even the difficult ones. But I wish I had understood in my 60s that the window for adventure was closing. I wish I had taken more trips, stayed out later, said yes to more invitations. You do not lose your partner all at once. You lose them in small pieces, year after year. And one day, without warning, they are simply gone. My older brother Frank and I stopped speaking when I was 67. It was a stupid argument about our mother's care, about money, about responsibilities we both felt were unfair. I was convinced I was right. I waited for him to apologize. He waited for me. Neither of us ever did. We spent 9 years in silence. No phone calls, no holidays together, no birthdays. Just pride sitting between two people who had shared the same childhood and once loved each other deeply. Frank died of a heart attack at 79. I found out from his neighbor, not from family. I never got to say I was sorry. I never got to hear his voice again. I never got the chance to sit across from him at a table and argue about something meaningless, the way brothers do. Being right did not bring me peace. It brought me a lifetime of regret. If there is someone in your life you are not speaking to, someone you love who hurt you or who you hurt, pick up the phone today. Not tomorrow. Not when it feels easier. Today. People die without warning. They do not wait for perfect timing or perfect words. They leave, and they take your chance with them. Forgive while you still can. Pride is heavy to carry, and it is useless when you are alone. For a long time, I believed my children needed my guidance. I had spent my entire career giving advice to teenagers. I was good at it. I thought that experience made me qualified to manage my children's lives as well. I commented on their careers, their marriages, their parenting. I pointed out what they were doing wrong and what they should do differently. I told myself I was being helpful. In reality, I was being controlling. My son Jonathan stopped calling as often. Conversations became shorter and more careful. I could feel a distance growing, but I did not understand why at first. It took me years to realize that my children did not need solutions. They needed presence. They wanted me to show up, sit at their table, hold their children, listen to their problems without trying to fix them. Every time I gave unsolicited advice, I was telling them I did not trust them. I was telling them they were still children in my eyes. Love your adult children by respecting their independence. Ask questions instead of giving answers. Listen more than you speak. You cannot protect them from their mistakes, but you can protect your relationship with them by letting them live their own lives. I have 11 grandchildren and 4 great-grandchildren. I cannot remember all their birthdays without looking at the list I keep in my drawer. Some days I cannot remember what I ate for breakfast. I forget conversations I had just a few days ago. It is not dramatic. It is just quiet and constant. This happens to every mind that lives long enough. What scares me most is not forgetting names. It is forgetting moments. Stories that only exist in my head. The way my father used to laugh. The smell of my childhood home. The jokes my wife used to repeat. I started writing a journal when I was 79. I wish I had started 20 years earlier. So many memories are gone forever, because I never saved them anywhere. Write your life down. Write the stories your family tells at holidays. Write the recipes your parents taught you. Write the small moments that seem ordinary now, but will feel precious later. If you do not record your memories, they fade twice. Once when you forget them, and once when no one else ever gets to know them. I spent most of my life afraid of getting old. Afraid of losing my wife. Afraid of being alone. Afraid of becoming dependent on my children. I tried not to think about it, as if ignoring my fears would somehow protect me. It did not. Everything I was afraid of happened. My wife died. I lost my strength. I moved into my daughter's house because I could no longer live safely on my own. The future I had been avoiding arrived anyway. And I am still here. I still laugh at my grandchildren's jokes. I still enjoy sitting in the sun with a cup of coffee. I still feel grateful when someone holds my hand or asks how I am doing. The things I feared did not destroy me. They changed me. They made my world smaller, but they did not end it. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to keep living honestly, even when you are afraid. You cannot avoid loss, decline, or death, but you can face them with awareness instead of denial. You are stronger than you think. Not because life will be easy, but because you will survive things you once believed you could not. When I was young, time felt slow. Summers felt endless. Years felt long. I could remember exactly what I did at 20, at 30, at 40, because everything was new and memorable. Now the years blur together. I turned 70 and barely noticed. Then suddenly I was 80, then 90. I remember waking up one morning and realizing that a whole decade had passed, and I could not clearly describe what had happened in it. The seasons repeated. The routines stayed the same. The days quietly stacked on top of each other. Time moves faster when nothing feels new. You stop counting birthdays. You stop making long-term plans. You start thinking in months instead of years. Without realizing it, you begin living in shorter and shorter horizons. I am not saying this to frighten you. I am saying it so you pay attention. Pay attention to your mornings. Pay attention to the people you sit next to. Pay attention to the conversations you keep postponing. Time does not warn you when it is about to disappear. It does not slow down. It does not ask for permission. It simply keeps moving while you assume there will always be more. One day, you will look back and realize that the last 30 years of your life passed faster than the first 60. And by then, there will be nothing left to save for later. My wife, Margaret, died 6 years ago. We were married for 61 years, and then she was gone in less than an hour. A sudden stroke in the middle of an ordinary afternoon. One moment we were talking about what to cook for dinner. The next moment I was sitting alone in a hospital hallway, holding a bag with her clothes inside. Now I live in my daughter's house. I have a small room with a chair by the window and a photograph of Margaret on the shelf. Every night before I fall asleep, I talk to that picture. I tell her about my day. I tell her about the grandchildren. I tell her I miss her. She does not answer, but I keep talking anyway. That is what love becomes when you live long enough. A conversation with someone who is no longer there. I am 92 years old. I have outlived almost everyone I have ever loved. And if I could go back, if I could sit across from the man I was at 60, I would grab him by the shoulders and say this. Pay attention. Be present. Say I love you more often. Take the trip. Make the call. Forgive the grudge. Do not assume you will have time later. You still have time. But not as much as you think.